I did this talk 18 months ago and had a number of people at the end of it get in contact with me about asking questions, which I'm happy to look into, so save them for later. But the big issue with finding your Irish ancestors is most of them are poor, fundamentally illiterate labourers, and it can be really hard. The other problem we have is we're so used to all the fabulous resources we have here in Australia that we expect every other country in the world to be the same, and sadly they're not. So here we go. Now, don't get too ambitious about what you're looking for. If you get past 1840, you've done remarkably well. Lucky people who've got trades in their family, you can find a lot more information about them than you can by a farmer or a labourer. And the big thing we all know about is the fire at the Public Records Office in Dublin in 1922. It didn't destroy all the records, but it did destroy a lot. There are some alternative places to go looking, and we'll cover a few of those today. Now, the Public Record Office fire in 1922 did destroy most of the census records. A lot of the Church of Ireland Anglican registers were lost. Those that had been deposited there were lost. A lot of wills and testament records were lost, but equally there is a lot of other documents that still exist, and the 1901 and the 1911 census still exist. So you have to also remember, because Ireland was divided also along religious lines, Catholic records are fundamentally held at the parishes, whereas the Church of Ireland or Anglican records are held in Dublin. And then you've got the civil records, which is 1845 onwards, which are also at the Dublin office. So Irish name patterns is also something to be aware of. Prefixes come and go through the generations. So O, M, and Mac, and Mook, and Fitz, they're all used in Ireland. Spellings can change a lot. It's due to illiteracy and the dialect of the area. So my example with the McWatters three brothers, they're on the same ship. On the red ship's record, they're spelt two different ways. That's obviously because of their background. And there's also a naming pattern that can drive you crazy with the Irish. So if you've got three men in the family, they're all going to name their firstborn son after their father. So you finish up with four people all with the same name in a very close age group, which is quite frustrating. Now, this is the naming pattern. It works for sons and daughters, and it works reasonably well, although as you come into them in Australia, it does start to fade out. But if you're looking back in Ireland, you'll find it as a regular pattern. So the best thing to do is create a timeline. Work backwards with everything you've got here in Australia. Every single skerrick of information you will find here is going to help you when you get back to looking at Irish records. You need your dates and your place, every family name. Don't just concentrate on the main line. Look at the other siblings because sometimes they're going to have the answer. Be aware of when the major events are, when the Great Famine was, when the Convicts came out. That all helps you work out what time frame you're looking at when you get back to Ireland. Now, townlands are really, really important. So in Ireland, you've got 4 provinces, you've got 32 counties, there's 2,600 civil parishes, there's 64,000 townlands. And then you've also got baronies and poor law unions and other land divisions to contend with. So you've got the situation where somebody is going to write different things on different documents. So if I use the McWatters, they've used various places for their origin: Belfast, Knockbreda, Ballymacarrat, Newtownards, County Down, County Antrim, Ireland, and also Scotland, are all on various documents for this family in Queensland. So narrowing down exactly what it is you're looking for and where you're going to find it, the more you can do here, the better it is when you get to unscrambling it when you get into the Irish records. Now, this is the 4 main provinces. Ulster is fundamentally North Ireland, and then you've got the Republic of Ireland and the other 3 provinces. Munster is way and above where a large percentage of the immigrants into Australia and Victoria come from. That's County Clare, and the south, they seem to really come to Victoria. Counties, it just divides them up even more. If you're looking at Belfast, which is here on the border, some parts of Belfast you find the records in Antrim, and the other ones are in County Down. You also have to be aware that the names of some of the counties changed. Somewhere that was called Kings Offley changed its name at a later date. Your civil parishes and poor law unions, this is, here's the border here between Antrim and Down. This area here is Belfast. This is Newtownards. So your maps are helpful to know exactly where you're looking, because sometimes you find records in the parish or the county that's next door. So I'm going through my map. Here's the main area of Belfast. This is where the Titanic exhibition is. And over here is Ballymacarrat, which is, I'm drilling down through the parishes. Now, this area was heavily bombed during World War II, and a lot of the early areas were wiped out, and it's now got a freeway running through the middle of the area. So the street that I was looking for is no longer there, but at least it's giving me an idea of the areas that I'm looking in. So the counties of Northern Ireland are pretty easy to see. If you are looking for people who are coming from Scotland, they're fundamentally going to come into Belfast, and they're leaving more or less from Glasgow. When you're looking for shipping records for them leaving Ireland to come to Australia, most of them are actually going to travel across to Liverpool and leave from Liverpool to come to Australia. There was very few ships came directly from Ireland. So your civil parishes, this is County Down. You've got to realise that your parishes are based on the Church of Ireland, but then you have your Catholic parishes as well. So this is showing how these 3 here are civil parishes for the Church of Ireland, but this matches this large area, which is the Catholic parish for the same region. So you need to be aware that some Catholic marriages took place in the Church of Ireland because there wasn't a minister there for them at the time, or because they were with the Troubles, or they were marrying across the religions. Don't just only look for them in the Church of Ireland or in the Catholic parish. If you're having trouble, look in both places. Now, Griffith's valuation is one of the documents that they suggest as a replacement for this early census. The only problem is it doesn't give you anybody in the family other than the head of the family. So you're not going to find wives and children and that sort of information, but it will give you information about the property where they're living, what their occupation is, and it does help place them in a specific place. The other document is the Tithe Applotments. This was where everybody had to pay money to the church, and the Catholics, the Quakers, the Protestants were not happy about paying to the Church of Ireland, and a lot of them didn't. So it is another document that puts you in place, but it doesn't cover the urban areas. So you have to be aware of that. Now, the census, we've only got 2 complete census for Ireland, which is 1901 and 1911. They're both very good. They have a lot of information on them, and they're readily available on a number of websites. There are fragments of the earlier ones, but you do need the luck of the Irish to find them. The local archives or history or family groups, Emerald Ancestors is very good. It has bits and pieces of 1841 and 1851. That's a subscription site, but if you subscribe for a year and use it a lot, it's worth it. The National Archives of Ireland has fragments, not a lot, and you've also got to take pot luck that you're going to get it. And there's lots of groups who have transcriptions for their area. But again, with transcriptions, there's the area for mistakes. So this is the 1901 census, shows you a transcription of it. It's interesting in the fact that it's not in the normal dad first, then mum. They've just done it as is. And this is the actual page that matches up to that transcription. It's beautifully written, very legible, and has all the normal information that we're used to. 1911, this transcription, they've added in extra things like the son dying in France, and when they were married. I think that was Find My Past. This one is the original. As you can see, it's not as readable as the 1901 example. It's the same family, but this 1911 document actually covers 3 pages. The next 2 pages, if you're scrolling sideways, give you details about the house. It gives you all the other people in the street, so you find out that there's a brother living 2 doors up. Even tells you things like the fact they've still got a potato shed in the backyard. So when you're looking at the census, don't just look at that first page. Try and see if it scrolls sideways and gives you the rest of the information. Birth, marriage and death records. They're a bit hit and miss. In Victoria, we're used to everything being in the one place. In Ireland, the records are all over the place. Civil registration started in 1864. The parish registers, especially for the Roman Catholics, they start around, earliest one I found is 1803, and they don't all exist, and it's a bit of a hunt to find them. Cemetery and graveyard records and descriptions. You've got Find a Grave, Billion Graves, which we're used to, but also the local councils have a lot of the records. The family history groups have got a lot of transcriptions. So there's a lot of places to go looking. Your newspapers, Ulster Historical Foundation, it's a subscription group. They've got the big Protestant papers for the north of Ireland, and if you're looking for them, it's worth joining the Ulster group because they have got a huge wealth of information for the Protestants. So this is an example of what you can get online. This is a select marriage. It's giving me his age, what date of marriage, who his dad is and who his wife is. Now, if you go to the actual church, which is St Anne's in Belfast, I was lucky enough to actually look at the register. And the bonus in this is that it tells me their full names, that he's a cotton dresser, she's a weaver, but down here, they both sign with an X. Now, lots of people could read, but they couldn't write. When you find lists that say marksman for an area, that is a list of people who make their mark with an X. It's not people who can shoot a gun. The Belfast City Council, they have their cemeteries on a really good database. This one is for the Knock burial ground. If you click on to the view details, it gives you that little bit more, which is their full address, his age, tells you it's the Knock burial ground, and gives you the grave number and tells you that it's an earth burial. So the thing is, with the cemeteries in Ireland, a lot of them are walled cemeteries, and you can have trouble getting into them. This is from Find a Grave, and all it tells me is the name and the date of death. So the actual council register is much more detailed. So this is actually not burial ground. You can see by the height of the fence, they didn't want people getting in or out. It's a very old cemetery. The headstones are really deteriorating. Oops, sorry. Click too far. Headstones are very hard to read, so thankfully they have been transcribed at various times, but you have to then go hunting for the books. And also this particular cemetery, you have to get access through the council. You have to meet someone there with a key to the gate because it's normally shut. Now, there are a lot of books in Northern Ireland published by the various family history groups with the inscriptions and extra biographical notes. This one is got the McKee family in here. This is me taking a photo with my camera sitting on my knee. So it's giving me extra information that wasn't on the headstone. The fact that she's got a will is quite unusual. And it's down the bottom showing me that there's another family member and there's a family member up the top. This is another book which has fabulous information about the local cemeteries. So this is giving me all the information about the cemetery, the background to it, which can help you when you're looking for other information. And then it goes into an alphabetical list of the headstones, what the grave looks like. So this one's in a railed enclosure, who is it erected by, a lot of detail in these books. Very, very handy because there's not that much online. So the Ulster Family History Group, they've also got things that are online that you can get for free, and they have a members area that you have to obviously subscribe to. But it's interesting because it gives you the cemetery and the denomination. So unlike the cemeteries we have here where we've got designated areas in a cemetery for the different denominations, in Ireland, you have a lot of cemeteries that are just Catholic, just Protestant. This one here in Knockbreda with the MX means that they've got Catholics and Protestants. So that's handy to have that information. It's also telling you the civil parish and your townland, which is narrowing down where your family are from. Emerald Ancestors, they have their databases here. These ones are ones that you can search for free, but they don't give you all the detail that you want. They might just confirm something for you. Facebook, family history groups, archives, convicts and dates, all these things in Australia help you place your person back into Ireland. our group quite often posts things in our Facebook page. We come across something that's for Ireland or for Scotland or wherever. So keeping a track of the local groups, looking at everything you can think of. There are Facebook groups that are just for specific parts of Ireland. This one is it covers County Clare, and it's got a wealth of information in there. And you can also obviously chat to people as well. So you're at least talking to people who potentially are living in the area that you want to research. Now, the County Clare archives is very extensive. They do have a lot that's online for free, and they do have a service where they'll research for you. Some of it costs you money, some of it, if it's a simple question, you'll just get an email back with the answer. Oh, I went the wrong way. Library of Ireland is another fabulous website. They've got a big genealogy section, and this is where you'll find some of the Catholic parish registers that are no longer in the parish churches. You'll find biographies, you'll find civil registrations, and I sort of go here first before I go to the subscription services. Back to the County Clare Library, they have a section here which is Migrants to Australia. Each one of these is available to, you can click on and read all the information that's there, but it's all things that have been donated to the group, and even though it's immigration, it's very, very specific. But you might be lucky, you might find the one you're looking for. This is the surname index that they've created, which is, I'm looking at the O'Day family here. It's giving you your surname and who the head of the house is, their townland street, their parish, and their union. So this one in 1855 covers a lot of area, and it's very readable, and it's giving you clues of where else to go. It doesn't actually take you to the page in the register, it's an index. The County Clare Library school roll books are very similar. Gives you the family name, the child's name, their age, dad's occupation, when they enroll. There's a notes page. Again, it's an index, but if you get in touch with the County Clare Library, they will research further for you. Eddie's Extracts, this is a free website. It's a bit sort of like Cindy's Lists, but a bit more specific, and it's really catering to Northern Ireland. So if you're looking for Protestants, Church of Ireland, particularly the Presbyterian Historical Society, Eddie's Extracts has a big variety of data. Some of them are things like burial records. These have all been created by volunteers. A lot of them will link off to more information. Some of them are just straight data sets. Again, it's telling you where the people live. I like the fact that it actually lists the disease of what the person dies of, and what their rank or profession. So this man here, he's a car driver. So it's a bit more information than you would get on some of the other burial sites. These are partial indexes from newspapers where they've created their own BDMs. These all link off, tell you what newspaper it is and where you can get further information. If it says view on the side, it's actually taking you to a view of that newspaper. Then there's interesting lists like the Daughters of Ministers of World War I. So this is really handy when you're looking for women. The fact that it's giving you whether they're nurses or this young girl here is a support girl messengers. Other than nurses, it's interesting. Here's one who's a voluntary aide at the 3rd London General Hospital. And the list goes on and on and on. So that was a really interesting little find at Eddie's. Then there's things like you're at an Irish website and they're giving you the Glasgow poor relief. This is another index they've created for people who are listed in Glasgow and their birthplace is in Ireland. And as you can see, a large percentage of these are North Ireland areas that they've come from, although here's a County Cork down here from Macarthur. So the people do go backwards and forwards. Fireman in Belfast in 1901. If you didn't know he was a fireman, this is a handy place to look. Gives you that extra bit of information about your man, where he's born and his religion. That's just adding more information in. This is another one from Eddie with infant boys school, where you're getting information over here that the child's an orphan, dad's a slater or a mechanic. Here's one whose dad's a soldier. Tells us that they're all Catholic children, gives the address of where they live and the date that they go into the school. These are baptism records for St Patrick's in Belfast. Lots of information on this database with the address, the date they're baptised. The sponsor. The sponsors is important in the context of a lot of them are actually relatives of the child that's being baptised. So always take notice. If the sponsor is listed, make note of who it is, because there's every chance they're going to be a relative, which could solve a brick wall at a later date. Marriage records, these are all still with Eddie, where they've put them into a database, giving you the information of where it's come from, who the witnesses are again, occupations. Now, one thing you have to note when you see somebody listed as a farmer, that doesn't mean he owns the land. It just means he's farming the land. And of course, you've got Google and the web. You can Google for maps. You've got Ancestry and Find My Past. Jen Yuki is fabulous for looking for Ireland. Cindy's List has extensive places to look, and they constantly update these things. I find My Past for Ireland better than Ancestry, but it's what you're looking for, and knowing that everything is not in the one place. Sometimes you've got the transcription on Ancestry and you've got the original on Find My Past and vice versa. Some will have one thing and the others have the other. So you have to use every avenue you can find when you're hunting. Newspapers. Now, one of the issues with newspapers is if you're illiterate, there's pretty much no chance you're going to be putting birth, deaths and marriage notices in the paper. You have to rely on the fact that the newspaper is writing about what's happening in their local area. Now, while we have fabulous newspapers here in Australia for all of our little country towns and tells us what's going on, the Irish papers tend to concentrate on the bigger towns. They don't have as much detail on marriage. You can get lucky, but it's more general lists of people who are for something, against something. But there are lots of papers that you can read. Obviously, the closer to today's date that you get, the newspaper stories are better. But there's lots available. The State Library here in Melbourne has Irish papers that you can access. Find My Past has a lot of regional papers, and Trove has British newspapers, and quite often you'll find references to things in Ireland in the British papers, and if you're lucky you might even find names in there as well, especially if they're involved in some of the political parties. You'll get lists of names and people going to jail for various things. So Find My Past, as I said, it's got the broadest amount of information, with your parish registers, the Quaker collection, which is really interesting, the island dog license. You sort of think, why would I look at that? Well, it gives you the owner of the dog, but also the address and a lot of information about that person and where they live, not just the name of the dog and the breed of the dog. And it is only 1866, but it might just solve that problem that you're looking for. Workhouse registers, they're very helpful because as people get older, especially as the younger generations have left Ireland to go to America or come to Australia, the ones left behind finished up, a lot of them finished up in the workhouse, and it tells you when they come in, if they leave, if they die. There's information in there that can help fill out what happens to them. Landed estate and court rental records and bankrupt estates. There's lots and lots of Irish who work as tenant farmers on these estates, and they're recorded in the estate records. So if you establish that your person is a farmer, he's a tenant farmer, if you can establish what estate, you can then go hunting for the estate records, and you'll find a lot of information in them. Now, I'm going to use John and Mary Lynch as my example of why you can run into seriously bad problems when you're hunting the Irish. So on here, this is clearly telling me that on the September the 15th, 1866, in Ballarat, John Lynch is a bachelor. He's from County Clare in Ireland, and he's marrying Mary McCarthy, who's a spinster, and she's also from County Clare in Ireland. So this is just, as you know, across those broad pages, won't all fit in the screen, you won't be able to read it. So this is just the first bit, and you look at that and you say, terrific. You also note down here that they live at Black Hill Gordons, which is just out of Ballarat, but obviously the nearest Catholic priest is in Ballarat. So this is the other half. This is where you really need to pay attention to what's on these documents as you're making your timeline to find your person, to get you back into Ireland. So here we've got John, he's 26, that's pretty clear to see, and he's a labourer. Mary is listed as a servant, but that looks like 25, but it could also be 28, so we're not really sure. We know that they're both from Black Hill Gordons. Here it's saying that his father is John Lynch and his mother is Bridget Hillary, and John Lynch Senior is a farmer. Mary's dad is John McCarthy. Her mum is Catherine, not sure what that word is, and the dad's a farmer. But importantly, John and Mary are signing with a cross, so we know that they can't write. These are the two witnesses. So this is a Thomas McCarthy and a Mary, could be Hanley, could be Hamley, could be Howley, not too sure what that is, but they've also signed with a cross. So they're not able to tell you if anything on this document is wrong, because they obviously are going to be illiterate, or at the best only very basic education. So when they have their first son, this is Thomas John Lynch. He's the first child born, and he's born on the 7th July 1868. And this is Kerrett Barrett. And you think, oh, okay. Now I Googled what this word is, and this is actually the Indigenous name for Black Hill, which is just out of Gordon. And I needed to keep that in my memory bank while I was hunting. It's telling me that John Lynch, the father, is a farmer. He's 28. He's from County Clare, which I already knew. It confirms that he got married in September 1866. And you go, great, that's good. And it's giving us Mary Lynch. She's formerly McCarthy, and it looks like she is also 28. And you think, oh, okay, so that sort of matches what was on the marriage certificate, that she could be the same age as John. So then the other half of the document, we find that John has signed with his mark again, that the birth was registered on the 28th of July, and it's at Gordon's. And you think, oh, keep that in the memory bank, make a note. So this is their third child, and it's 14th of April 1872. So I'm putting my dates down on my timeline. It's now they're saying that it's near Buninyong. So it's in the general vicinity of where the other child's born, still saying Kerrett Barrett. It's again confirming that their father is a farmer. It's saying that he's 31 and he's from County Clare. Here it appears to say that the date of their marriage is either 1867 or 1869, but it's telling us that they already have two children, Thomas who's 4 and Bridget who's 2. Mary Lynch is the mother. Interesting here, we've got McCarthy, not McCarthy. So is that because of her accent, or is that because how the person who's writing it down heard it? So going across, the father has given the information again, and noting now that this is on the same document, they're now saying it's near Egerton, which is between Buninyong and Gordon's. So you're making notes of these changes and just confirming the date that it's registered. So life's going on for this family. We've now got John dying. So John died, and it's saying here on the register that he dies on the 29th of July 1912. They're now living at Bellato, which is near Dalesford. It's saying that he's a farmer, giving us his age as 74, all the information about his death. His father is John Lynch, which confirms what was on his marriage certificate, and that he was a farmer, and that his widow, Mary, her maiden name was McCarthy, which you go, good, we're still matching up. Now, the information was given by their son, Thomas. So you would think as the eldest child, he would know the relevant information. But interestingly, this lady here, who is the local register for the area, she's put down that the burial is the 1st of July, which is a bit of worry when it says on this document that he's actually died on the 29th of July. So one would assume that this is potentially really June, and it's a mistake by the person taking the registration. On here, it's again confirming that he's from County Clare, and it says here that he's been in Victoria 34 years, and you think, okay, that can't be right, because He got married in Victoria in 1866, and he has a son in 1868. And there's Thomas, and that is the 5 children, but Kate is now listed as Catherine. And you think, well, she was registered as Kate, but maybe when she was baptised, they baptised her as Catherine, and that's what she's known as for the rest of her life. So you're making notes of all these bits and pieces, these slight discrepancies with ages, and think, something's not adding up, but everything keeps saying County Clare. When Mary died in 1926, she's in Bellato. It gives the information about the fact she's been in bed for, looks like 2.5 years. It doesn't give her father's full name, but does say McCarthy, and it's saying that her maiden name was McCarthy. Over here, Thomas has given the information again. Nellie Coughlin is the register again. She's buried on the 28th of February in Daylesford. Again, she's from County Clare, confirming that. This is saying that she's been in Australia 78 years. It's saying that she got married at Black Hill, but we know that she actually got married in Ballarat. It's now saying that she got married at the age of 22, but on the marriage document, it looks like it could be 25 or 28, confirming her husband's name is John Lynch, and is listing the 5 children in the correct order. So the Lynch family headstone is in Daylesford Cemetery, and you would presume that this headstone was put up when John died in 1912. Looking at the way it's been carved, it does sort of tend to lean towards that. That's Mary, because Mary dies in 1926. This is one of their daughters, but she dies in 1902, and these are 2 of her children who die in 1908 and 1914. Whether they're here in the grave is debatable. And these are the 2 unmarried children who died in 1942, and the other one was 1960 something. They may be in the grave, but without having access to the register, you can't confirm that. And unfortunately, even though this is a lovely headstone and it's still very clear, it doesn't give us those clues that we're still looking for, the Irish connections. So once I've made my timeline, I'm then going to start looking in County Clare to see if I can find John Lynch's parents, which we know is John Lynch and Bridget. But the County Clare Catholic parish baptisms, I don't know what parish. I would, in a practical sense, have to go through and read every single one of these parish registers to find them, because there are some I wouldn't have to read because I roughly know, I've got a time frame of when I think he might have been baptised, sometime between, say, 1835 and 1842 is roughly what I've worked out. So I don't have to read the whole lot. I've just got to go systematically through these, looking for a John born in roughly the right time frame with parents with the right names. Very time consuming. And if you do a search on Find My Past, it comes up with a huge result on John Lynch, County Clare, something like 3,500 results. Even using your filters and going down through the filters still doesn't give you a definitive answer as to the correct person in the correct parish. Now, the same thing with the marriage registers. Someone talked to me then. So with the parish register, you've got the same issue. There is only 40 parish registers here for the marriages, where there was 45 for baptisms. So it means that there's registers missing. So if I could establish the baptism, if I established in here which one was the baptism, and I then want to find the marriage, I've then got to hope that when I get to the marriage register that's there. The fallback plan is to then go and look at the National Library in Dublin at their pages and see if they've got a register for County Clare that doesn't match the ones that County Clare have got. So my Lynch family timeline, as I'm working my way through it, I know they got married on the 15th of September. I know that all 4 people have signed with an X. I know that John's 26 and Mary could be 25. When Thomas is born, both parents are listed as 28, which is roughly right for John, but could be Mary because we weren't sure on the marriage certificate whether that was a 5 or an 8, so that still could be correct. But when we get to Kate being born, John's age sort of matches, but Mary hasn't aged at all in 4 years, so something's wrong there. When John died, it says that he's 74 and he's been 34 years in Victoria. His son is 44. And he says they were married for 30 years, but they were actually married for 46 years. And it's changed the date of when you think John might have been born. You've got the same thing with Mary. They say that she's 92 and she's been in Victoria 78 years and that she was 22 when she got married. So you can presume that Thomas, even though he's giving the information, his education as such might have been rather basic. He's possibly got still a bit of an accent, even though he's born here in Australia. So the person taking the information is writing down what they hear and what they're given. But at no stage is anyone saying that these people come from somewhere other than County Clare, which is giving you a headache like there's no tomorrow. Because it's like saying someone comes from Victoria, but you don't know where in Victoria. So our problems for this family are, where in County Clare are they from? They're both Catholic, but which parish are they from? They could be from different parishes. John's birth is estimated between 1836 and 1842. Mary is somewhere between 1834 and 1848, depending on what you've got. Lynch is a very popular surname in County Clare in that time frame. It's a bit like Smith. Literacy for the family is none or very basic. Both witnesses to the marriage could be relatives. The local newspapers on trove for Dales for 1912 and 1926 are not there. So they are at the State Library. It would take a trip into the State Library to look at them on microfilm. To date, I've searched and not found any siblings in Victoria for John or Mary. The best match I can find for John arriving in Australia is on the Marco Polo from Liverpool. He arrives in 1860 as a 20-year-old labourer, and I really can't identify Mary, although there is a possibility that she could have arrived in 1860 as well as a servant and round about a 20-year-old. The son Thomas is not consistent with his dates and places when his parents die, so this brick wall could stay for quite some time. It's not that it's insurmountable, but it's a case of you haven't got enough information to nail it down to a specific area that you need to research in. find my past, as I said, when I put John Lynch in, came up with 4,088 results in County Clare. And then I used the parish register filter, and that brought it down to 156 results for County Clare. And it covered 5 parishes, so it did narrow it down. But even going through 156, I couldn't find the parents with the right names. I could find John Lynch being with a John Lynch and with a Bridget, but the surname didn't look anything, even allowing for handwriting, the surname didn't look anything like what was given on the marriage certificate. Then I looked at the Griffiths valuation, and there were 43 results for John Lynch in County Clare in 1855. So I'm looking for the father, but I couldn't, again, because it's only got the male name there, can't really lock it in. The Tithe Applotment book in 1840 had 39 results for a John Lynch. The 1841 freeholders of County Clare came up with 7 Lynch farmers, but none of them were a John. Then I looked at further shipping records. The closest arrival for Mary I could find was September 1860 as a 20-year-old servant. And it's possible that that ship, because I looked to see if I could find the 2 witnesses at their marriage, to see if I could find their arrivals and information about them. And I think I found the Mary Howley. She also travelled on the Wantana, but a couple of years earlier. She was 24, Catholic, she was from County Clare, she was a servant and she was illiterate. She was sort of matched the information on the marriage certificate. But looking at the Victorian births, deaths and marriages, I couldn't find her having any relationship to the family that you could definitely say, yes, okay, that's a cousin or it's a sister. And the same with the Thomas McCarthy. When you looked at his death details, the parents were just too far removed to have been, yes, okay, they're definitely brothers. So the problem with the brick wall is, if you can't find the parish, you've got to look through an awful lot of information. Keep making notes, because you might find at a later date something's been digitised. Keep looking back at places you've already looked. Don't expect to find it at the click of a button, because you won't. Even with Trove, finding things in the newspaper for illiterate Irish labourers is really hard. The Advocate in Victoria is a Catholic newspaper. They have a lot of information about Irish birth, deaths and marriages if the information's been passed on to them. Best bet I've got is the 3 daughters of John and Mary who marry, between them have 20 children. There's an off chance that somewhere in the family, someone has that missing piece of information that says, oh yes, they came from wherever in County Clare. But it's not my family. I don't have contact with these people, so it's a bit hard to narrow it down. So the choice then is to hire a professional genealogist in Ireland, give them every skerrick of information you can that's taking you back to County Clare, give them a copy of the marriage certificate, the death certificates, everything that you think will give them hints they might be able to recognise with the handwriting. They go, oh no, that's really so-and-so. If you're really going to break down that brick wall, it's a professional genealogist. Also, look at the fact that you're back into a time where records really are sparse for a number of reasons. We're very lucky here. They basically kept records of everybody in Australia from day dot, and they're quite readily available. But when you get back into Ireland before 1840, you've then got to think to yourself, okay, maybe I need to look at English records. Maybe I need to look at other places. The Herald's visitation of England and Ireland in 1850 to 1688 is the register for coat of arms for nobility. So your chances of finding an illiterate farm labourer there are pretty slim. But there are hearth tax, window tax in the 1600s. That's possibility you might find your name. Then you've got the Irish Rebellion in 1798. There's lots of lists of men who are arrested for being in the uprising. They lose their land, their home. A lot of them are transported. A lot of them are in jail. So you need to go looking and say, is that a possibility? Got to keep in mind the potato famine in 1845 to 1849. Did they go to England? Did they go to Scotland? Did they go to Canada or America? They might not necessarily have come straight to Australia. You have to keep a broad perspective on what they might have done, where they might have gone.